You're listening to Puma Podcast.
Hi, I'm Tatiana Maligro, Puma Podcast, and you're listening to Teka Teka News. In this episode,
Ang dami ko nang kilala ng mga Gen Z. No, I'm serious. I mean, it's really surprising for me. And they talk about it matter-of-factly. Alam niyo naman yung the way we glamorize, no? The way we hold maternity, no, as the highest calling of women, di ba? And they're really bravely going against that. So talagang decision nila.
we talk about the Philippines' declining fertility rate and why Filipino couples are choosing to delay having kids or go completely child-free.
They have so many reasons. Di ba? Minsan political pa nga, no? May environmental, not just personal, ha, na I don't feel I'm fit to be a mother. But more like I don't want to add to, climate change and environmental degradation, mga ganyan. Also political, I don't believe in motherhood, And I think that has to be respected as a choice. We should not stigmatize women.
You just heard Dr. Natsi Africa Verceles, a professor at UP's Women and Development Studies Department. She was speaking in a recent live stream on Puma Podcast on the economics of being Pinay in commemorating Women's Month. And she was talking about a phenomenon you might have already heard of, the double income, no kids, or DINK couples.
Kasi alam mo, sobra pa rin siyang stigmatized. If you say it, that I don't intend to have children. Especially if you're married na. So that's the pressure that these women have to go through, and we need to support them through it. No? We have to normalize choices also when it comes to motherhood, or not entering motherhood.
In the Philippines, family is everything. Traditionally, Filipinos have had large, close-knit families. Having children is seen as a blessing, and parents are expected to be well supported by their grown kids. But times are changing. Let's start with a closer look at the personal experiences of one Filipino couple, Dan and Danica Flaminiano. They belong to a growing demographic in the Philippines, the DINKs, or dual-income, no-kids couples. DINKs like Dan and Danica have chosen to delay starting a family, focusing instead on their personal goals.
Kumbaga, parang yun yung naging tradition ng mga family dito sa Philippines.
Kumbaga yun yung process nila. Step 1, magpakasal. Step 2, mag-anak.
Pero kami kasi, before we got married, talagang pinag-usapan namin yan na, wag munang magkaroon ng anak. Kasi, kumbaga parang ang napag-usapan namin is, we just want to plan. Kasi alam naman natin na hindi ganun kadali talaga na magkaroon ng anak. Lalo na especially if you're not prepared for a certain area of life, like financial aspect, emotions, physically, kasi talagang may mga bagay ka ng i-give up eh.
Sabi nga nila, having kids in this economy? Because that's definitely one common factor many DINK couples cite. And that's not without basis. High living costs, housing affordability issues, and job instability contribute to the decision to delay having children. Here's national statistician Dennis Mapa dissecting the country's accelerating inflation rate in February.
Ang housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels ang pangatlo sa may pinakamalaking ambag sa pangkalatang inflation nitong Pebrero 2024. Ang commodity group na ito ay nagdala ng 0.9% inflation at 5.8% share sa pangkalatang inflation. Ang mga pangunahing nagambag sa inflation ng housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels ay ang mga sumusunod. Renta sa bahay na may 3.1% inflation. Bayad sa supply ng tubig na may 8.0% inflation. At kahoy na panggatong na may 3.4% inflation.
In 2022, the Philippines witnessed a significant milestone. Its fertility rate dropped below the replenishing level of 2.1 children per woman. This decline in birth rates has brought to light a myriad of socioeconomic and cultural factors influencing family planning decisions in the country. The point is that the decline in birth rates raises concerns about the long-term sustainability of the Philippine economy and its social welfare systems.
The country has had a high youth dependency And the major challenge here is much of the scarce resources had to be spent on increased needs for primary health care, nutrition, education, and related services for the young dependent population.
That's former NEDA Secretary Ernesto Pernia. He says that with fewer young people entering the workforce and an aging population, policymakers face the challenge of adapting to these demographic shifts.
Incidentally, high fertility and poverty typically leads to a vicious circle that can be self-perpetuating. Hence, it's crucial to reach the poor with modern family planning, education, and health services that can enable them to move out of poverty. I think you're familiar with this. A child's human capital development begins in the early stage of the mother's pregnancy and manifests at 0 to 5 years of age. Growth is so fast that by age 5, the child's brain is already around 90% of the adult's brain. It is reported that in our country, 1/3 of 0 to 5 age children are stunted or underweight owing to malnutrition, even in pregnancy, hence unable to reach their full potential in the later years.
We're pausing for a quick break now. When we return, we'll tell you about the impact of the DINK lifestyle on Filipino relationships. The DINK phenomenon also opens up very important questions about gender and family in our culture. Does this mean, for example, that women have more leverage or control in relationships and deciding about marriage and children? Economist Mayen Vital has an idea.
I would just say na siguro, at least, medyo balanced na sila in a way na parang both of them have equal powers to decide on whether or not they're gonna get married. Kumbaga, kung yun nga, kung merong, if the woman is able to bring in something to the table, di ba? Kasi meron siyang degree or meron siyang job opportunities or meron siyang kakayahan, then yes, meron siyang say. Pero again, we're talking about middle class women who have had the opportunity to get a higher education degree.
For Dan and Danica, the choice to become a DINK couple has been a mutual decision, one that they believe will build a stronger foundation for their life as a married couple.
Kapag ang babae nagkakaroon ng anak or ang isang married couple nagkakaroon ng anak, mas ang babae, mas marami sinasakripisyo. Katawan niya, yung career niya, tapos yung oras niya, mas siya talaga eh. So sabi ko sa kanya, bigyan mo ako ng panahon para maging handa sa lahat ng iyon. Kasi gusto ko pag pinasok ko rin yung pagiging isang ina, buong-buo yung loob ko. Kumbaga wala akong second thought na, ay, parang hindi pa ako ready pala, bakit naman pinasok ko to agad? Alam ko wala namang 100% ready, pero at least, di ba, majority of your percentage ng heart mo talagang handa na. Yun yung gusto kong mangyari before we jump into the next step ng life namin as a married couple to being a parents.
But in the grand scheme of things, a shrinking workforce could impact economic growth in the future. The social security system, which relies on younger generations supporting retirees, might face strain. While the traditional Filipino family structure might be evolving, the declining birth rate is a complex issue with social, cultural, and economic factors at play. As the country navigates this, it'll be crucial to find ways to support young couples through childcare subsidies, parental leave policies, and flexible work arrangements.
There are so many policies that could really empower women. Kasi nakikita na natin kung ano yung mga pressures, kumbaga, at limitations. So we talked about discrimination, we talked about yung burden of home care. Maybe we can talk about, or we start thinking about policies relating to fair allocation of household care. Kasi makikita mo yan sa in the workplace. Let's say both parents are working. ang babae lang yung magkakaroon ng leave, 'di ba? Siya yung may maternal leave kasi andun yung expectation na ang babae yung mag-aalaga ng anak niya. Why not have like paternal leaves, 'di ba? Na kung saan yun nga binibigyan mo ng opportunity yung lalaki na mag-alaga ng anak niya.
But at its core, Dan and Danica's story is a snapshot of a generation that's rewriting the rules when it comes to relationships and family planning. For young Filipinos, it's all about embracing choice and prioritizing personal fulfillment above societal expectations. Sure, there are economic and social factors at play, but at the end of the day, it's about owning your narrative and crafting a life that reflects your values and aspirations. And for Dan and Danica, that means living boldly and unapologetically on their own terms.
Sa mga dinks naman, ang advice namin is to take your time. Huwag kayong magpa-pressure.
Take your time. Create more memories.
Mhm.
Yun, yung mga and create more simple dates. Ayan, na mag-e-enjoy kayo, dalawa. Ayan, like,
Kumbaga, i-build nyo muna yung foundation ng
Yes.
marriage nyo before you jump to another phase of your married life na maging magulang.
and for the husbands, siguro for the husbands, always pray for your wife. Why? Kasi sila talaga yung mas masyadong nagiging apektado dun sa ganung sitwasyon. Kasi syempre, kumbaga sa mga babae, kumbaga factor yan eh. Diba?
Kasi we have clock ticking.
May clock ticking, may age, di ba? And always be a kakamuti. I-comfort mo sila. Normal yun na yung mga babae makakaramdam ng ganun, mararamdaman nilang masasaktan sila. Pero make sure na at the end of the day ng usap ninyo, ma-comfort mo yung emotion.
And that was today's episode of Teka Teka News. Again, I'm Tatiana Maligro. This episode was edited by Pidoy Blanco. Our Teka Teka News executive producer is Jill Caro, and our senior editor is Veronica Uy. If you liked this episode, share it with a friend or two. And of course, don't forget to follow Teka Teka News and Puma Podcasts on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. Thanks for listening.